what I wanted to talk about today, when we heard that it was about keeping human in the workplace, I wanted to look a little bit about the magic of being human, like how complex, how cool we are, and then the need for research to understand that and therefore build technology around it. And when we talked about being human in the workplace, it reminded me of a great book I read a few years ago. So I know we've had some great speakers up here talking about the books that they've written. I'm standing up here talking about a storybook that I liked from a few years ago. That's the caliber you've got today. The book was called The Humans by a fantastic author called Matt Haig. And it was really a really witty look into the human race and the weird qualities that we have. And the book starts with a maths professor from Cambridge in his 40s, and he's just uncovered the secret of prime numbers. And so with mathematics, prime numbers are thought to be the building blocks of the universe. So he's uncovered the secret of the universe. And this sends an alert off to a planet far away, many galaxies away, where the alien race go, oh, hang on, we can't have these guys understanding these secrets. These idiots are going to be dangerous. We can't have this. So they send an alien down, they kill off this maths professor and put an alien in his place, in his body. But they miscalculate things a little bit. The alien thinks he's going to appear sat at the desk in his campus, and actually he appears stark naked, bundling out of an ambulance into a motorway, where he's hit by a car shortly after. Being an alien, luckily he survives this, and he starts bundling his way towards the Cambridge campus. On the way, he stops at a building with Texaco written at the top. He goes in there and he starts learning the language from a document he finds with Cosmopolitan written on the front. And then he turns up at the campus to many shocked faces and realizes that the first rule of being human is actually you need to wear clothes in public. And so it goes on, and he gets into this family life and starts working out the rules and the nuances of being human. I'm just going to read you just one quick paragraph from this book just to sort of help set the scene. Should have got you some milk and cookies or something for this bit. So the manners and social customs are a baffling enigma at first. Their conversation topics are very rarely the things they want to be talking about, and I could write 97 books on body shame and clothing etiquette before you'd even get close to understanding them. Let's not forget the things they do to make themselves happy that actually make them miserable. This is an infinite list. It includes shopping, watching TV, taking the better job, getting the bigger house, writing a semi-autobiographical novel, educating their young, making their skin look mildly less old, and harbouring a vague desire to believe there might be a meaning to it all. But how true is that? How many times are we having conversations and we're actually thinking something differently? Or we have one intention and we actually end up doing something completely different? There's all of these societal norms and environment that impact what we do, and sometimes we forget really how complex we are. So I want to explore that a little bit, and then we'll go on to some of the research that we've been doing into this. So to make sure everyone's awake, I want you to get involved. Just a quick question for you guys. Can I get everyone just to stand up for a second, please? I know it's hot. Please bear with me. So David earlier asked those who had a New Year's resolution based around health. I'm just interested, who here had a New Year's resolution this year? If you did, please stay standing. Everyone else can sit down. Okay. Of those people who are still sticking to their New Year's resolution, stay standing. Everyone else, please sit. It's not too bad. It could have been a lot worse. Well done, guys. I guess that's just a really simple example, isn't it, of how our intentions, we come out with the best intentions, we want to, change our diet, we want to get healthy, all of these things, but life is more complicated than that, and we'll explore that a little bit later. I myself am completely guilty of this. A number of times people have said to me, Si, you're on a phone quite a lot, and I go, no, I'm not one of these people, I'm far too sociable for that. I thought I'd track it. I thought I'd track my phone and see my usage, and it's quite horrifying in two areas. So one, my average usage of my phone is between 2 and 3 hours a day, which feels quite high. So that's a little bit embarrassing. But the other bit, which is probably worse, is most of my time is spent playing a game called Boggle, which is a word game which was around in the 90s, I think. So that was nearly 5 hours across 6 days that I was doing that. So there's a little insight into me right there for you. Okay, so I guess we're a bit special. As human beings, there's different ways of looking at that. There's this amazing documentary, which I won't make you watch now. It's only about 18 minutes long on YouTube. Go have a look. It's about a guy in North India who decides single-handedly to take on this desolate part of the country that can't grow anything. And single-handedly, he plants a forest over 30 years, which is now bigger than Central Park in New York. So that's a pretty amazing story. We can look at the fantastic things we've built, the architecture. We can look at medicine, the vaccines, and millions of lives we've saved. We can look at the technology and the connecting all of the people across the world. We can look at this guy who collected 700,000 elastic bands, which weigh more than 4 tons. And we can look at the physiological side. So if we take a simple bodily reaction, so let's say a grizzly bear was to walk in the back of the room now, we're probably all too hot, we'd actually just be sat there and not really care. But if you have a stress response, this triggers in the brain, so your hypothalamus. Your hypothalamus, as they tell us, is responsible for the 4 Fs. That's fight, flight, feeding, and sex. So this kicks off, and it triggers a reaction in your adrenal glands, top of the kidney. So that releases cortisol and epinephrine. Then our heart starts beating faster, so we start pumping more blood around the body. Our lungs start going quicker, we breathe faster to get the oxygen in. Then our capillaries dilate in our hands and feet, and the liver releases glucose to fuel the body. So, in this really sort of split second of this stress response, all of these complex things are going on. We're charging the body with oxygen, with fuel, ready to react, ready to fight, or, work our way through those 200 emails, whatever it may be. But that's amazing, right? We're pretty incredible. I've got a few more stats around the body here, but I wanted to get you guys involved in this bit. And when I was planning the session, the team said, right, we've got this microphone. It's in some padded foam. We can pass it around, throw it around, whatever you want. So I thought, brilliant, we've got to use that. So what we've got is a microphone here. And effectively, I want us to play a bit more of a chaotic pass the parcel while I put on some music. And when it stops, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to give me your best guess. Does that make sense? So I get everyone to put their hands up a bit so you can sort of protect yourself when I throw this out here. And then we'll keep throwing it around until the music stops. Okay.
Maybe I'm foolish, maybe I'm blind, thinking I can see through
be
this.
brave, you can throw it, that's it.
Got no way to prove it,
Lovely.
so maybe I'm
Keep going.
lying.
Okay, let's stop there. Oh, Kieran, there we go. What I want to know, Kieran, is how many bones there are in the human body. In an adult human, how many bones?
200.
200, awesome guess. Not quite there, but very good. Open that up to everyone else. Anyone know the answer to that? So, someone said, I think? 306. It's 206 is the answer. So some people said 300. Actually, when we're born with about 300 bones, but these fuse as you get older. So you imagine the baby's skull is broken in parts. Broken is not the right term, it's in parts. And then, you don't want that, to aid the birthing process, and then it fuses as the baby gets older. And anyone get what that song was? Human, yeah, by Rag and Bone Man, so obviously related to bones. You'll see there's a link between the music as well, that's great. Okay, so next one up. Could we get the microphone going again? So Kieran, if you want to throw that. Bit aggressive, but we'll go with it.
I was watching.
Get some down to the back, those guys are missing out. Lovely, and hospital pass at the end there. Someone grab the microphone. Could you share your name with everyone, please? Just your first name, we'll keep it friendly.
Nafisa.
Just talk into the front bit of the mic.
Oh, Nafisa.
Right, brilliant, thank you, Nafisa. What I want to know is how many cells are there in the human body? I'm going to give you a clue, it's in trillion.
9 trillion.
9 trillion, not quite there, it's a little bit higher. Anyone else? How's the guess? 13, it's 37 trillion. So again, pretty complex. Imagine all of these things working at once to make us the people that we are. Can anyone connect that song with that fact? Did anyone hear what that song was? No, complex one. White Stripes, Hotel Yorba. Anyone know the album it was from? Guys, it's too hot for this, isn't it? Album's from White Blood Cells. Got wasted on you guys, wasted. White Blood Cells obviously linking there. Okay, and where the microphone is, do you want to give that a throw and we'll kick off one last fact?
Open Gangnam Style.
Okay. There we go. Who's got the microphone? Could you share your name with everyone, please?
Paul.
Hi, Paul. Welcome. Paul, what I'm looking to find out is how long have humans been on Earth? In fact, how long has life been on Earth? So if you think of how long it's taken for us to evolve, from when life started till now, how many years is that? From the start of the first single cell organism. It's in billions.
Okay, 50 billion years.
50 billion, a little bit less than that. Anyone else? 3, someone said 3, 3.8 billion years. Cool, thank you. That's the end of the mic. You can put that down next to you there. Did anyone connect that song? Firstly, apologies for making you listen to that song. I feel it's ironic that I'm talking about the magic of being human and then playing Gangnam Style. Can anyone make a connection? Gangnam Style with a figure. Say that again, Liam? Yes, so Gangnam Style was the first to hit 1 billion views on YouTube. It's now at about 3.1 or something. Again, it feels very ironic, really, from what I'm talking about. But great, so we're complex, we're wonderful, we're magical. Look how long it's taken us to get here, 3.8 billion years. The first computer was created 82 years ago. So computers have had 82 years to get to the point where they're pretty much caught up with us. We've had 3.8 billion. Who's going to win that race? So back to David's point, I think I'm with him down this Terminator end, really. But anyway. Cool. So yeah, we're a bit complicated. I asked you a question earlier about New Year's resolutions. Obviously, a lot of people have dropped off from that original intention. As I say, intentions don't always see their way through. Sometimes what we say and what we do is different. So, according to the research, after 6 weeks, 80% of people have dropped New Year's resolutions. In terms of the kind of things that people actually commit to, 50% health-related, 20% about getting out of debt. All of these things are quite complex if you think about all of the things you'd need to do to actually be able to keep them going. So if you think about exercising more, eating more healthily, well, if you're cooking more healthy meals, what do you do for the rest of the family? If you're finding time for exercise, do you do that through leaving work early or not seeing your friends? And actually, there's quite a lot involved. So the idea of doing it and actually doing it can be quite different. Does anyone recognize this name? This is classic A-level psychology for anyone who remembers. I'll give you a clue here. This picture might piece it together. Yeah, so Stanley Milgram was the guy back in the 60s, did the experiments. He was intrigued after the Second World War of how people would commit such atrocities, so he wanted to look into it himself. So he put an advert in the paper, and he got people to a lab experiment at Yale University. And they came along, and he allocated them into 2 groups, teachers and learners. He said it was random allocation. In actual fact, only the teachers were the participants, the learners were actually actors. He then walked them through the lab. He got the learner into a room where he strapped them to a chair, strapped them up to his electric generator whilst the teacher observed this, took the teacher into the next room, and he said to the teacher, he said, right, I'm going to ask them some questions, and every time you get it wrong, I want you to give them an electric shock. And each time they get it wrong, I want you to up the voltage. And so these seemingly innocent people were going through this, and were starting to administer these electric shocks. Obviously weren't real, but they heard the reactions from the other room and therefore believed it to be real. So apologies for the poor picture here, but it went from 15 volts up to 450, slight shock up to danger severe, and then triple X, which you can only assume means bad things, effectively. And you can guarantee all of these people would say that, I would never hurt someone unless myself, I was threatened. But they're sitting here in this teaching experiment, and the participant would get something wrong, and if they would either administer the electric shock, or if they paused, the experimenter would give them a simple verbal prompt and say, please continue, please, the experiment requires you to carry on, please, this is important research, effectively. So all they were getting was verbal prompts to go through this. What they found is that everyone was prepared to electrocute someone up to 300 volts, which is a bit harsh, right? I like to think this was done in the 60s. Ethics would probably not allow us to do this kind of thing now. But 2/3 of people went right the way to the end. And at this point, the person in the other room stopped making any sounds, so you assumed they'd either lost consciousness or worse. The research has come into a bit of criticism in the past couple of years, but I think the ethos underneath is still pretty sound, that we do behave and act differently to sometimes we might expect, and we might even suggest that we would ourselves. A more contemporary example is Darren Brown. He obviously does some fab stuff, but he did one episode where he convinced an innocent person to push someone off a building. A bit more manipulative, but another example of the same sort of thing. And this, you don't want you to do anything on this, but just think to yourselves for a moment. If there's an old lady struggling in the street, would you help her? I think, yeah, maybe you probably would. So what if there's 5 other people around? What if there's 10 other people around? What if there's 20 people around and you're in a bit of a hurry because you're late for a really important meeting? Suddenly that starts to change a little bit, doesn't it? And there's another famous study, which I won't go into too much detail, but a lady called Kitty Genovese was stabbed in New York, again back in the 60s. New York Times reported there was 38 witnesses who either saw or heard, and not one of them reported this. And it became known in the psychological world as the sort of start of the bystander effect. The idea that responsibility is diffused in certain situations when there's more people around. You'll all assume that someone else would do it. If I asked you guys, could someone give me a hand with my books at the end of the session? If there was one of you in the room, you can almost guarantee you would. With all of you sat here, you'd probably all like, actually, I'm quite hot, someone else would do it. We'll kind of let that go. So behavior isn't as simple as we sometimes expect it to be. There are societal norms, there's environment, there's other things that impact on this. Can anyone tell me what this is? Rhino? No, but it's strangely on a very good theme here. Panda, yes. Nicely done. And what about this over here? Pac-Man. I like going with that. So obviously most people say a white square. You probably got it from the first point. At what point does this become a panda? Because really it's a series of black shapes. There's no sort of outline. It's not really true. Well, you'd probably simplify this as a white square, but really it's some black circles. And this is Gestalt psychology. This is the idea that, as Matt was saying earlier, we've got so much to process that we simplify things by bringing them together and grouping them and giving them our own outlines. So we just group this together and see it as a panda. We group that and see it as a square. And this is important, understanding behavior in this way is how we do like user experience and design. So you think when you go onto a website or when you read a brochure, the way things are placed, the way how you group them together, and so you believe through that proximity that this image goes with this passage of text and this headline. This is how we work with people's behavior and we use it in technology. So that's the importance. We need to understand this behavior. We need to do the research, and that will lead us to creating the great sort of piece of technology that we all want. So we've been doing a bit of research ourselves, so I wanted to share just a little bit of this with you guys. Hopefully there's a few takeaways in this. Myself and some of the product team, we went on a little bit of a road trip along the south coast here, all of the beautiful places you'd want to go, trust me. So we partnered with EDF Energy, who've been absolutely fantastic with this. They arranged all the venues, sorted out the food and drinks, and were brilliant to collaborate with. But we went out to actually speak to employees who haven't engaged with the system. So in all of our reward and benefit schemes, there's populations where people don't engage for whatever reason. And sometimes it's really hard to get out and actually talk to them and understand. So that's what our mission was, to go out, get these people in a room, speak to them, and get some of the themes as to why they haven't taken part. So these are the themes that I'm going to share with you now. So the first one, I guess we all kind of know this, but it's actually sort of hearing it and realizing like how important it is. Seconds count these days. Things are measured on seconds. We've had Amazon mentioned a few times. I want to do a really, really quick poll with you guys just to get a kind of feel for this. So, Slido was mentioned earlier. Can I get you guys to get your phone out and just go on to Slido? You can either just chuck that into Google or go to www.slido.com. And what I want to know, if you go onto the poll, is do you use Amazon regularly? Take regularly as you want. Is it something that you pick up and you go to as a bit of a habit? If we move across to Slido. Okay, bit of a mix. People generally favoring it. We found it in every session that we ran, people talked about Amazon. It is the benchmark, it's what people go to, it's what they see as that user-friendly piece, and Matt was talking about it earlier. So there we go, so sitting around about 80%. Can we just jump back to the slides quickly? So what about if I said this to you guys? What about if I said you can't use Amazon as it is anymore? It's being stopped as an app. What we're going to do to use Amazon is we're going to log on to your intranet. If you haven't got an intranet, let's just pretend for this exercise you have. You're going to log on to your intranet. You're going to go through to one of these pages. So you're going to dig down into the intranet a little bit. You're going to then find something from the drop-down menu, and then you're going to click through onto Amazon. So each time you want to go and buy your book, that's the process you go through now. So the question is, would you guys still use Amazon? So can we flip back onto Slido again? So to answer that question again, if you had to go through that process, would you still use it? Okay, and here we can see a bit of a flip. So suddenly, actually, we're not so interested. So I guess we need to be mindful that when we are buying into these new products and this new technology, we think about the access point for employees and where that sits. And I know that's a challenge because there's lots of things we want to bring together, but let's make sure we're thinking about that whole journey and how we make those seconds count for employees. Lovely. If we can switch back onto the slide there. Point 2, so this is really interesting. The idea that trusted brands are dying is that people say they don't trust the corporation, they don't trust the providers. What they trust is their colleagues and other employees. So they will go onto a site they've never used before, and if they see a consumer review which is favorable, they will happily use it. So we need to use this across our workplaces and our benefit schemes. And our communication team try and do this a lot, get out the testimonials and the quotes, but where we can do this more, we need to link up the advocates with the people who aren't using it as much, get them to blog about it, talk about it, get them in front of other people, join them up. That way we're going to get real credibility into our schemes. And then sometimes best intentions fail. So we saw this from your New Year's resolutions earlier. I guess we have people who want to use the site. They will hear about it. They'll receive emails or notifications or see the communications, and they'll be on the phone at the time. They'll be doing something busy. So think, well, I'll do it later. I'll do it when I get home in the evening. Well, actually, something else crops up then, or they forget because we're only human after all. So what can we do to give them a better chance? Can we make sure that we're contacting them either at work when they want to be, or actually at home in the evening on a personal email address, for example? Could we potentially give them 5 minutes out of their day to make sure that this important task is incorporated? We need to see how we help them to follow through on those intentions. And then the last point I wanted to make from some of the research we did is I guess it's just reinforcement for why we're all here today, is that we know work tech is falling behind, and so we're working to bring that up to speed. So we had examples of people who said, sometimes I'll go home and I'll check something at home in the evening, which I should have done at work, because actually it's quicker, because the network won't get me there, or because the technology is so slow, it's quicker for me to have a look at in the evening. And that's quite bad to hear, essentially. So hopefully that's why you're all here today, and I think we're on the right path. Let's bring technology up to the consumer grade that people are used to. Okay, and we're just starting on some new research. I want you guys to guess what the topic is there. And if you remember, I mentioned Boggle earlier on. I couldn't not involve a little bit of Boggle in this presentation. So hopefully some of you will have played it before. What Boggle is a grid of 4x4 letters, and within those letters, you make words by going left, right, up, and down. So like a word search, but without going diagonal, basically. So I've hidden the word of the next sort of research topic we're doing in a Boggle board, and I'm going to give you guys about 10 seconds to get it. You ready? Anyone managed to get it? Thank you, Kieran. Very, very genuine there. So reward is what we're looking into. You guys will know the great stuff we've been doing around recognition, around the sort of social validation piece. The next stage for us is looking at reward. What that means is actually, what is most important for people? Is it financial reward? Is it that social status? How important is the immediacy of reward? How important is it that everyone kind of sees this? Is it important that I choose the reward myself, or that it's chosen for me? Is there a cognitive load if I have to choose it myself? All of these questions we want to work through to find the best possible way of giving people a true reward that holds value. So we're doing that across 3 different work streams. First one of those is we've been working with Southampton University to find a really high caliber psychology graduate who's going out looking at all of the research and scientific journals that exist on the topic. So they're going out pooling everything that we know about reward right now. The second phase is us actually doing some research ourselves. So some of that will be going out, surveying people retrospectively, thinking about the rewards they've had and the impact that's had on them. We know that just actually getting people's opinion is fallible. We've seen that from best intentions. So we'll also be doing some behavioral testing. So the best case scenario is you get people as close to the real life scenario as possible, and then you see what they would do. How would they behave in that scenario? So we're looking to do some of that as well. And then the final piece is pooling the information that you guys have in the room. So, you guys are closest to your employees. Some of you have already got reward schemes. Some of you are looking to the future to put in reward schemes. We'd love to know what's important to you, what you think about it, what your experience is. We're running a workshop actually in July. We'd love you guys to come along. It's in London. There's only limited spaces, but please do get in touch with your client success director or your Benefex rep and let them know, and they'll make sure that we get your name on the list. We'd love to get your input and together work through what reward's going to look like in the future. And I think when we get all of that stuff pooled and back together, we're going to have a fantastic solution and some fantastic research to share with you guys. So I'm really excited about that. Okay, so I guess in summary, hopefully that made sense. We started talking about the wonder of being human and how weird and quirky we are. I would love you to read this book. It's a very light read, very interesting. It almost be an HR manual. I've actually got 3 copies here, so the people who spoke into the microphones earlier, if you come and see me later, you've got a copy you can take away to say thank you for taking part. But we are complex, we're wonderful, we need to understand us, right? So people are complex, let's use science to understand them, and then let's create technology to help them. Thank you very much. That's the end of it today.